Fabulous. We're cooking on gas. Yeah, so I'm Andrea. It's lovely to be back here again. We like coming. We like coming. It's a nice place, a friendly welcome. You know, it's very nice. Yeah. So I worked for Edge Ministries for 3.5 years, but I worked for Carl Beach for about 5 as his PA. And what a ride. It was absolutely amazing. God's been doing amazing things in Chesterfield and beyond. I've lost my train of thought. Hang on. This happens to me a lot, which is why I have everything written down in paper. But yeah, so I'll explain a little bit more in a bit. But I have recently left Edge Ministries in my working capacity and in my role as part of the leadership team, but it is still my faith community, is still my church. Still love them very much, and I still volunteer when I can. We ran a pre-loved school uniform event yesterday in the Edge Centre that I used to run, and it was amazing. Dozens of kids helped and kitted out with school uniform that someone would have had to pay a lot of money for, if it wasn't for the fact that they were giving it for free. So it was, very good. But what I want to talk to you about today is something that God put in place for us literally at the very, very, very start, and that's resting. And, we have a very good Father, and He knows exactly what we need before we even say a word. And His plans for us are way better than anything that we can put in place for ourselves. And resting is something that many of us aren't very good at. And if you listen to the rest of this talk today and think, well, I'm actually all right, there's a bit for you. There's coming. I have a thought for you too. And I think we end up in a rat race sometimes. We pack our lives full of stuff and full of things to do, and we're spinning plates left, right and centre, or we might have a go at this resting thing and end up feeling guilty or lazy, and it's hard, isn't it, to find a balance. And for the sake of transparency, I'm not speaking to you today as someone who has mastered this at all. But God has been speaking to me about this for a while, and I thought there might be something in this for other people too. And so, as I said, I've recently changed my job. I have found a new one, which I am very much enjoying, and it's good for my brain and my soul and everything. So God's done well for me there, for sure. I was not doing a good job in balancing my church life and my work life with my family life. And so when our 10-year-old boy, Joe, comes and said to me, Mama, you're always out. You're always going somewhere. You're always doing stuff. You're always this, that, and the other. I have to listen to him. I have maybe 3 years left of him being little. And if he doesn't get to speak into my life as part of my family, then I'm not doing what I should be doing. So I thought, I wasn't doing a good job. And it wasn't other people's expectations on me. It was my expectations on me, that I always had to show up and I always had to do things and carry things as if God's kingdom would collapse without me. It will not. He is better than that. And so I think I was really feeling the weight of all of that, because that wasn't what God had planned for me. And so I started looking for a new job, and one of the lines that I came across a lot in different job adverts is, you should have the ability to thrive under pressure. And I thought, what? I don't think that's what we're made to do. I don't think that's how we're created. And in women's ministry, I've often heard that phrase that diamonds are formed under pressure, which is fine and well-meaning, but actually we aren't made as physical or mental and emotional and spiritual hard stones. We are human beings. And human beings that are under pressure for a long period of time get squashed. That's what pressure does. If you think of one of them like lemon juice presser things, if you press it, it gets squashed. And it's not good. It's not how we were made to function, I don't think. One of the Bible passages I want to bring to the table, and I will skip the odd verse here and there, but just so that I don't lose a lot of people by reading for too long. But I think I've kept the concept of what God's trying to say. So it's from Exodus chapter 16. The Israelites have just come out of Egypt. They're in the desert at this point, and they're grumbling at Moses for not having enough food and that. And so the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. The Lord said to Moses, I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. And then later on in the passage, we see that actually some did go out and gather too much, and then they left it for the next day, and they found that actually it got stinky and full of maggots. And I think there's an emphasis in this passage about obedience, doing what the Lord has said for us to do, and trust. For us to trust that actually God's going to give you what you need. I know of a good and kind lady who had a tendency to stockpile stuff. Her house was full of loo roll and kitchen roll and cleaning products, and when she sadly passed away not too long ago, it was stacked to the rafters full of this stuff, and this was stuff that she hadn't had need for, and her children had to redistribute. And yeah, like the Israelites and the manna, I think we have a tendency sometimes to forget that God is in the mix, and that God is really good at giving us our bread daily. I think one of the beautiful things in the Lord's Prayer is that give us today our daily bread. In the Swedish translation of that, it says, give us today the bread that we need. And I love that it's a daily thing. It kind of encourages us to keep short accounts, but also to keep in touch with God on a daily basis. Because if we only ever check in with him, every third Tuesday of the month, it's not. We're missing out. We're missing out if we're not in touch with him regularly. And so I want to encourage you to check in with him regularly to see if there's anything. Ask him to highlight if there's anything that you're chasing that you don't need to chase. And ask him to highlight what it is you're maybe missing out on because you're chasing other things like loo roll and shiny things and things that you don't have to worry about. And to highlight how important the Sabbath is, I wanted to look at when does it first show up? And it's literally Genesis chapter 2. And it's only in chapter 2 because chapter 1 is full of the things that God had been busy creating up until that point. He made heaven and earth and light and dark and night and day and sky and ocean and land and sun and moon and stars and then flying creatures and then swimming creatures and then livestock and wild animals, and then on the seventh day he rested. And I'm no theologian, but I don't think it was because he was about to run out of power. I think he probably could have kept going if he wanted to, but he modeled rest for us. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because we as humans weren't made to have our engines running 24/7. And for the purpose of this morning, I'm not necessarily talking about having a weekly day of rest, although if you can manage to build that into your rhythm, then that's fantastic. That would be a good thing. I'm talking more about the concept of rest, and for you to build that into your rhythm, whatever rhythm you're working on, whether it's daily, weekly or monthly or whatever. In Mark chapter 2, verse 27, in the New Living Translation, it says, "Then Jesus said to them, 'The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath.'" And we all know how the world works in terms of every household needs an income of some sort, which is fine, but sometimes that rat race of work and tasks and needing to do things can completely overtake us mentally, I think. And it's like you get stuck on one of those. Have you seen those artificial steppers and they're not artificial steppers in a gym, and they're like an artificial staircase, and you're stepping and you're stepping, but you're not actually getting anywhere. You're not actually getting anywhere, and especially if our purpose or the meaning of life, if you like, is for us to be closer to God. Whenever you're on that artificial stepper, you're missing out on actual time and a relationship with Him. And like I said, the plans that God has for us are way better than any kind of surplus that the world can offer us, whether it's stuff or money or respect or accolades or admiration, whatever you can, go chasing in the world. Jeremiah 29:11, as I'm sure many of you know, says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." It doesn't say if you work your fingers to the bone, if you burn your candle at both ends, and if you miss out on all of the family days, you should just about get by in life. Because He's a lot better than that. He's a lot kinder and more gracious than that. And He's also really patient and kind to us when we miss the mark, which is what I did. I was like, I have to do the stuff, I have to carry things, and I have to show up and do things, like I said earlier, like as if His kingdom was going to falter because I wasn't showing up. It wasn't. He is better than that, and He has plans for that, but I think sometimes I get caught in the, I'll just do my thing and hope that God comes along, whereas actually I should do His thing. I should come along on His thing. And I think a lot of the time it happens in churches, it happens in families, it happens in workplaces, where you get stuck in that concept of 20% of the people do 80% of the work. It doesn't work in the long run, because people end up being burnt out. And stress in general can end up masking some pretty severe health issues. And if we're not careful, if we don't check in with ourselves, if you don't let ourselves have a breather, you can miss stuff. It's not good for you. It's not good for us. And I realised a couple of years ago how important it is to be kind to myself, which is something I hadn't twigged onto before. If I was doing something just for myself, or there was just a tinge of guilt and shame and like, I shouldn't. We say that a lot, don't we? I shouldn't. Actually, yeah, I do. Sometimes you need to. I used to, if I made a mistake, I would eviscerate myself, and it was not healthy. And that, in combination with just doing too much, I kind of hit the wall. And coming back from that was God's kindness to me and people's kindness to me that got me through that. And I figured out as well the importance of me being kind to me, because God is kind to me. That's another thing that He has modeled. And so I want to encourage you to make space for yourself. let yourself rest because he wants you to. Let yourself enjoy the good things in life that he has put before you, whatever that looks like. My husband likes going to McDonald's in an early morning and reading a newspaper. That's how he chills out. Yeah.
The way I roll.
Yeah, for me, and this is going to sound very silly, and I think I may have mentioned it before when I've been here, I feel close to God when I take my kids to football games, it sounds very strange maybe, but actually I love making memories with them. I love the excitement, especially if we're going on away games, because we have, we go to get the car snacks and we make the Spotify playlist, and there's an excitement and a build-up and a joy that's involved in that. And I love it. And throughout that, I teach them things. I teach them about the ups and downs of life through football. Teach them that you don't have to hate another club in order to love yours better. That's not how it works, in my opinion. And I just love it. And actually, that joy, when I feel that joy and that fullness of life, that rolls my thoughts up to God, because he's given me those things to enjoy. It's a beautiful thing. So whatever that is for you, it could be, McDonald's coffee, gardening, taking your dog for a walk, enjoy it. Like, savor those moments. That's the good stuff in life. It's not shiny stuff or extra loo roll. That's not the good stuff in life. And I think when we slow down and we make room for breathing and for gratitude, that's when joy comes, Gratitude is the key to joy. And we're offered eternal life when we say yes to Jesus, and that's a beautiful thing. But I think also Jesus gave his all for us to enjoy this side of eternity as well. In John 10:10, Jesus said, "The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I've come that they may have life and have it to the full." And you can see that thievery as well, can't you, of the enemy when it comes to steal your peace, and it comes to steal your time and steal your focus, and just that's what he does. He's a thief. But Jesus, he's good, he's kind, he gives you things to enjoy. And for me, the older I get, the more different that fullness of life looks. Whether it's going to football games or I do a lot of driving. I like driving, and when I drive at night and I see those beautiful Derbyshire sunsets, and I just sometimes feel like, God, it's like you painted that sky just for me. He didn't, but I feel that is what it's like. And there's that holy closeness that between God and his children that just brings a peace like no other. And I have absolutely been known to look for that peace in other places. When you're in the rat race and everything's sort of fast-paced and stressy, and you find a moment to breathe, I've been known to do the wrong thing and play games on my phone or go on, social media and all that. And again, I am not speaking to you as someone who's mastered this. I just want to blow the whistle on the fact that we're letting the good stuff in life pass us by while we're scrolling or watching too much telly or reading gossip mags or whatever it might be. That is just not, again, it's not the good things in life. And when it comes to finding that peace and finding that moment to rest, Jesus is your peace. Jesus is our joy and our strength. And he wants our company. He wants us to seek him. He wants us to focus on him. Our friend Suzanne, when she became a Christian a few years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, something like that. She's got one of these big personalities, absolutely outrageous, and she's really funny. And she used to say all the time to me, because I became a Christian before she did, and she's like, "Oh, well, the religion's nice, but it's not for me, love. It's not for me." And then she changed her mind. And you get to do that, don't you, with Jesus? And she said, as a brand new Christian, she was in her kitchen one day washing pots and thinking about the Lord. And she just kind of went, "Hi, God," as she was washing pots. And I thought, I bet that put a massive smile on his face, because he was being acknowledged by his daughter who he died for. And that's a beautiful thing. So I want to encourage you to seek your peace and your rest from him. It doesn't need to be polished or eloquent or like a big production in any way, shape or form. It just needs to be authentic and heartfelt. Go sing with him. Sing with him. Go for a walk with him. Read with him. Dig into the word with him. I sometimes, this might sound really silly, but it's okay, I can be humble. I sometimes in my car just do this as if I'm holding his hand. It's just my fist, but it feels to me like I'm acknowledging him. I'm just holding his hand. And yeah. So that guilt and that shame that we sometimes feel, at the end of the day, Jesus on the cross took away that shame and that guilt from you. Don't pick it back up again. We don't need to pick it back up again. He has asked us and he has modeled rest for us. And the amazing thing about God is that it doesn't matter how far you've sprinted away from him in that rat race, because all you have to do to be close to him again is just to turn around and he meets you right there. Right there. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So if you've listened thus far and think to yourself, well, actually, I have a balanced life. I'm not stressed. I'm okay. Then first of all, thank God that that's your story. I'm happy for you, truly. But second of all, I want to encourage you to get alongside people in your life who may not have it sorted yet. Maybe they can learn something from you. Maybe you have some logistical sort of mastermind that they can pick some good ideas up from. Pray for them. Pray with them. Lend them your time if you have spare. One of the beautiful things about faith communities and churches like this is that, we get to be not just in relationship with Jesus, but in relationship with each other. And we're all different. We're all different, from walks of life and different experiences and all the rest of it. And we can learn a lot from each other and we can support each other. Young can learn from old and old can learn from young. I think God's put us together for a reason. And one of my friends has taught me a lot when it comes to boundaries, actually, in terms of saying no. She models that really well. She was going to come this morning, actually, and then she said, "No, do you know what? I've had migraines all week and my husband wants to spend some time with me, so I'm going to stay home." And I was like, absolutely, that's what you should do. And I think sometimes when we say no to each other, we got to make it okay for someone to say no to us. It's all right. Well, let's have a lot of grace for each other, And there's a really good Bible passage that I was thinking of as I was thinking about this particular thing, getting alongside each other, in Exodus chapter 17. It says, "The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, 'Pick out some men and go and fight the Amalekites tomorrow. I will stand on top of the hill holding the stick that God told me to carry.' Joshua did as Moses commanded him and went out to fight the Amalekites, while Moses, Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his arm, the Israelites won, but when he put his arms down, the Amalekites started winning. And when Moses' arms grew tired, Aaron and Hur brought a stone for him to sit on, while they stood behind him and held up his arms, holding them steady until the sun went down. In this way, Joshua totally defeated the Amalekites." And I thought that was such a visual thing of people literally coming alongside each other, holding, sometimes you will need your arms held up by other people, and sometimes it's on you to hold someone else's arms up. Because there's a part for everyone to play in God's kingdom. Nobody is written off. And in fact, I'm trying to find what I wanted to say because I've not written this part down, but it's in my head, so I need to say it. It could be that there are people sitting back, not getting in the game, if you like, maybe just waiting for something. But here's your cue. If God has put something on your heart to do, then get in the game and share that process with your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. And I bet you'll see that people will pray for you, people will pray with you, people will hold your arms up. Because I'm not saying that we should all just go home and put our feet up forever and ever, amen. We do need to do good things. God has prepared good works to do, so we do need to be in the game. But none of us feel or think that all of it should rest on our shoulders. That's not it. And when we need to pray for more workers, we'll pray for more workers. As long as we keep our plans in line with his plans, we should be all right. Resting is preventative. Recovery is an aftermath, and that's harder. And like most things in life, this resting business is between you and the Lord. This isn't a call for you to compare yourself with other people, whether it's how much you're doing for the kingdom or how good you are at resting. This is between you and the Lord. But the Sabbath was a good gift from a Father who loves you very, very much. And so I want to encourage you to make it a good, solid part of your life. It is justified and authorized, and in fact, if you do rest, you're being obedient. I'll finish off with this. I went for a walk the other day. We live quite close to nature reserves, really pretty around there. It was just after school drop off, and I was going to work the sort of afternoon evening shift that day, so I had loads of time, and it was lovely. And I think I got about a third of the way home, and it started drizzling, and I thought, it's not ideal, but worst case scenario, I'll have to straighten my hair again before I go to work, no biggie. And then the heavens opened. And in the summertime, I don't mind being caught in the rain. I think it's quite nice, but it was cold that morning. I was not in the mood, and I was like, it's not nice. And, it didn't take long for my trousers to start sticking to my legs, and my ponytail was sort of dripping in my neck, and I ended up walking like this, just being really moody. And my toes were getting wetter and wetter for every step of the way, and I had about at least 15 minutes walk back, and it was not showing any signs of letting up. I need to learn to check the weather forecast. This is just not part of my life. I just don't function that way. So as I was walking along like this, and I thought to myself, actually, do you know what? I'm being a bit silly because I have loads of time. If I just suck it up right now and carry on walking, when I get in, I have several hours left. I can have a shower, I can get back into my pajamas if I want to, I can put my feet up, I can have a coffee, just enjoy the rest of the day until I start work. And the thought of being able to rest and being allowed to rest made that walk in the rain a lot better. And so if you have built-in rest in your life, that walk in the rain will be a lot easier, and you will be stronger. You will become more resilient and patient and gracious and kind to yourself and to others, I think. And he's good. I'm going to finish off by reading Psalm 23, which is well known and I think suits the topic of this morning very well. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.